My name is Michelle Doane. I grew up in the Midwest. I have degrees in piano performance and education. I'm married. I have a 15-month-old son, and I currently am the manager of projects in the Office for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here at Vanderbilt. So one experience that I can recall is one time when I was in a meeting, and it was an initial planning meeting. We were thinking about applying for a grant, and we're trying to come up with ideas for what project would fit that grant. So this was a meeting that involved several different offices. And one person from an office who was the head and a senior executive level, so she was a VP, she mentioned an idea that I had some reservations about. Based on what her idea was, I had already foreseen issues with staff capacity and maybe some of the funding and just the sustainability of the program. And so I went ahead and voiced my concern for that. And as soon as I said that, I saw a very noticeable look of surprise on her face. And it was a very fleeting look, but I caught it. And then she kind of made an offhanded comment that she was surprised that I had said something about it. And I was a little taken aback by that and didn't really have time to process it. And before I even really had a chance to say anything, another person in the meeting jumped in and talked a little bit more about some of my concerns and how they agreed with them, and talked in a little bit in more detail. So the moment was very short, and there was never really a formal address of it after the fact, but that was something that really stuck with me at that time. I don't think that she did it intentionally, and I don't think it was anything malicious on her part. I think it was honestly something that was on her mind, and she didn't really think about any ramifications of the statement. It was something that she really felt was just offhanded. So the experience made me feel a lot of emotions. At first, as I mentioned, I was just taken aback, and I was surprised by it as well because I wasn't expecting it. And then I felt annoyed because I started thinking about why she would say something like that. And I just felt like in front of everyone, she had kind of called me out in front of everyone to some extent. And then afterward, after that, I also just was curious as to kind of why she would make that statement. And I would say that all in all, I kind of went through a range of emotions with that experience. So at the time, there were very few minorities in that organization. And so I believe that as a young Asian female, she expected that I was there to do my job. At the same time, I was also not at the same level as her. So I do believe that she just thought that I would kind of keep my head down, do what I was told, go along with the flow, and not necessarily speak up and voice my own opinions. In my other experiences, what I have experienced is that being Asian and being a female, people tend to assume that I will kind of sit quietly, not necessarily voice my opinion, go with the flow and that sort of thing, do my job, and that's it. And so that is kind of the impression that I also got in this organization as well. And so that's kind of where I got the impression that that is something that also played into how she reacted to me. But I think that it was more because I was fresh out of school. So it was someone who, they were seeing it as someone who would be entry level and learning and probably, so kind of go with what they were told. So I would say that this example references unconscious bias because I don't believe that when she made that statement, she wasn't thinking anything about any sort of bias that she might have had. But she made the statement for a reason. And the statement that she made was that she didn't think that I would say something. So there was some sort of reasoning and explanation for why she thought that. So regardless of what the bias was, whether it was age or race or anything like that, there was some sort of bias that made her say that statement, and then also kind of treat it as if it was treated as just a regular everyday statement. So I will say that's probably a regret that I have, is that I never specifically addressed the situation with her. I kind of let it slide at the time, and that's something, if I could go back, that I would change.